All right, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. Regis Prograis signs a 3-year deal with MATCHROOM. I think this is a fabulous signing from Eddie Hearn. He's making a comeback for sure. More about that in this video, but we're going to get into the particulars about what this means. We're going to talk a little bit about Andy Cruz. We're going to talk about Eddie Hearn and his signings, New Orleans as a city, and Regis Prograis in general. Let's get into the video.
This man is the man to beat in the 140-pound division. Massive signing for us. He's one of our top fighters. We're going to make him a huge star, and it all begins June 17th, live on DAZN.
Boxing.
On it.
Okay, shout out to all the subscribers. Big up to anybody new locked in. So you heard the news. It dropped last night at the Canelo fight. This is very exciting. I think it's a really good move from Regis Prograis signing with Eddie Hearn. I think Eddie Hearn is making a bit of a comeback. You know, I did think he would make some moves. I think he's got, you know, he's got that ability. Whether you think he came from, well, he did come from a silver spoon. There's no two ways about that. And he got a lot of stuff given to him. He still has a fighting spirit. And, you know, he's been quietly making some moves behind the scene. They're slowly coming out now. Obviously, Jack Catterall, Edgar Berlanga, Regis Prograis, obviously the AJ DAZN deal and the progression there. Fast forward 1 or 2 years, he could be in a really good place again, which is only good for the sport. So let's talk about Regis. Now, I've been a big admirer of Regis, and if you've been a subscriber of the channel, you'll probably know that. I really enjoy watching his fights. I love his energy. Throwback. He's a New Orleans native, and I've met many people from New Orleans over my time. I've been there several times, and it's my favorite city in the world. I think it's magical, and it's hard to explain it unless you're actually there. There's, like, you know, food, jazz, music, energy, not the Mardi Gras partying side, just the actual energy, bit of voodoo. And Regis, you know, just has that demeanor, and, you know, he's an old school throwback fighter, and I think he's obviously the best at 140 right now. Well, Josh Taylor will probably have something to say about that. That rematch would be amazing if that happened. That's completely possible. There's some massive fights out there for him. He's already got a date, which I might think about actually going down there, to be honest. July 17th, I think it is, against a gentleman I've never heard of. Luke Parrow, is it? I'll put it up on the screen, but never heard of this guy. It doesn't matter, to be honest with you. Regis has built himself up down there, and I think he was criticised in the past for not being able to, you know, fill out a stadium. I don't know about a stadium, but I think he can get a good crowd. And Eddie Hearn really knows what he's doing with this. I think he's learnt a lot from his mistakes about how he approached the US market. He came in very brash, very arrogant, very naive, but, you know, a good sign of you know, a person really is to learn from your mistakes and understand and accept them, take them on the chin, and you know, make the improvements and adjustments. And what he's doing with Berlanga in New York City, fighting an Irishman. There's a massive Irish population here. I think Jason Quigley, is it? Yeah, fighting him with Berlanga at MSG, you're going to get the Irish fans come out no matter what. Regis has built up a big name for himself. He has. I think he can put some bums on seats now in New Orleans. And obviously he's doing other things. You know, he's slowly understanding the market in the US, and he knows that Regis, as a champion right now, it is a homecoming fight for him. He just did it with Canelo in Guadalajara. And, you know, he's figured out a few little, you know, entry points in the American market, and I think it's really good. It's interesting, but don't call it New Orleans.
And June 17th, we take him straight home to New Orleans.
It's New Orleans. He said that in the interview. I'm surprised he didn't get corrected by Regis Prograis at the time. But Prograis was talking, you know, to Mannix. I forgot his first name. My memory is so bad. Jason Mannix? Doesn't matter. Mannix, you know, the guy, the DAZN guy that needs a haircut. And he was like, you know, the Tank fight, he wanted Garcia fight. I want to touch on the Garcia thing really quickly, because I know he came out in defense of him, you know, not quitting or whatever, and Garcia definitely quit, and I was very vocal about that, and I just want to express that I was generally, well, generating my energy towards casuals that really didn't know anything. It was a lot of BS online, and I was speaking about them. But Prograis, prior to the fight, was calling Garcia soft.
Listen, with him, I mean, I just don't think he's battle tested like I am. And I don't want to call him soft because he's a fighter, but I don't think he's as hard as I am. That's the thing. I think I could call him soft compared to me. I can't say he's soft because he is a professional fighter. He did get dropped by Luke Campbell. He got off the canvas to get a stoppage, but Luke Campbell and me, we not in the same boat at all.
So how are you going to call him soft and then, you know, when he is soft, defend him? But nonetheless, there's some big fights at 140. The fight we really want to see, Subriel Matias. Okay, that's a unification. That is an absolutely insane fight, and one I'm sure that their Matchroom will be very tentative about, because that is a massive risk. I would slightly favor Regis on skill, experience, ability. You know, I think Regis will be forced to box a little bit more. Regis Prograis is one of the few fighters that I can think of that can fight, pushing a fighter back in the mid-range with his hands down. It's quite incredible. His defense is his best attribute. He just doesn't use it as much because he's so aggressive and he likes to fight. But defensively, he is sharp. You know, his step back game, his head movement and his upper body movement and his IQ, his hand-eye coordination are excellent. But when you're thinking about offense all the time, it's harder to invoke those, but he does, and it's one of the hardest things to do in boxing, and he does it very well. But him and Matias, who looks like he doesn't have a soul sometimes, you know, if you look at his eyes, the guy looks crazy. That is an absolutely mouth-watering fight. Hopefully we can get that down the line. The Cattrall fight, I'm not as excited about, to be honest. I think it's an interesting fight. I think stylistically it could be a bit of a weird one. Two southpaws. Cattrall's a bit of a spoiler. Yeah, it's a decent fight, but I think it could be a bit of a banana skin in terms of just like a bit of a dud for the fans. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if Hearn, I think Hearn will know that too. But then again, it's an in-house fight because they're both from Matchroom, so it's a win-win, unless it's a poor event. But this is very exciting, you know. I'm like, I can't wait to see this fight on July 17th now, even though it's probably it's going to probably be a one-sided beatdown. I don't know this Paro guy. I've got to look into a bit more, but I generally might go down there. I generally might do that. New Orleans, like I said, it's a majestic place. It really is. But this is great news for boxing. And also Andy Cruz, let's talk about this briefly. Obviously Cuban, you know, amateur standout superstar in terms of his talent. There's no hiding like that. I mean, we all know how good this guy is. Obviously he beat Keyshawn. He's got, is it a couple of gold medals? I'm going to briefly touch on it because I'm very aware of him, but I'll be honest, I haven't watched loads of him. I just have heard from so many different sources, and you keep hearing it from, you know, channels that I respect very highly, that he is absolutely unbelievable, which is a sneaky signing from Hearn. And the good thing when you're signing blue chip fighters and guys that are supposed to win, that's a good healthy place to be in as a promoter. You know, when your guy or gal is favored to win the fight, it's these are sneaky signings from Hearn. And I think matchmaking is going to be very important, especially for like well, all of them, but particularly for Belenga and Cattrall, because you know they're well, Belenga definitely needs a couple of really good performances, and Cattrall, you know, he's in a tough division, and he's, you know, he's not the most eye-catching fighter, but I think Hearn is going to be able to move these guys really well, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they do. I'm very excited about this, as you can tell. But yeah, so you got the Cruz, you got Prograis, Cattrall, looking good for Matchroom. Like I always said at the beginning of the video, and I've said it months ago, don't rule out Eddie Hearn. He's got a fighting spirit, and he's learned a lot, and his ego might have taken a hit. And I'm not fanning out for Hearn at all. I think he's got some immorality about him. I don't think he's a moral man at all. He's a boxing promoter, but for what boxing promoters do, he's one of the better ones. And he puts on fights, he pays fighters, and on time. He takes care of them for the most part. Obviously, there's been some issues lately, which is put a stain on his reputation, which is unfortunate. And the whole DAZN thing with him hemorrhaging money, and it's like the Conor Ben situation. You know, hopefully, you know, he can learn from that and come out and not do the same things, because, you know, it's a dirty game, and he's probably got caught up in it. But nonetheless, let me know your thoughts on this Regis Prograis signing. Who do you think he should fight? And do you think it's good for MATCHROOM? I think it's great for MATCHROOM, and I think they are going to be a force again in a year or two. I really do. And I hope they are, because it's good for the sport. Anyway, that's it from me. It is an absolutely stunning day here in New York City. I'm going to go for a run in a little bit. It's like 70 degrees. Spring is fully sprung. Summer's coming. Boxing's flying. What's there not to be happy about, man? I'm out of here. Boxing on the edge. Take care.